Are live, baby. This is hammer time. I need to have some like a drum beat in the background. Hammer time, baby. Hammer time is the time where I get to talk to you guys about getting that local right. You'll have that local. Can't escape the local. You cannot escape the local. Everybody has the loco. Hammer time is where I talk to you guys about keeping it real. Keeping it real weird. Keeping it real weird. Your art career, your artistic challenges, your artistic victories, your artistic awesomeness. It's left for hammer time, baby. Hammer time. Hammer time. Hammer time. Yeah. My name is Slim Shady, baby. My name is Jose Trujillo. I'm an artist. I'm an artist and a pretty kick-ass artist. And I've been doing this for quite a bit, and I think I got a few things on my sleeves. I got a few things on my sleeves that I can share with you guys about keeping it real, about doing your thing, working at your endeavors, being all you can be as an artist. Challenge yourself, expand, grow, and as artists, we tend to not really pay attention to certain things. I think because we get so consumed in the day-to-day. Yeah, baby. And the day-to-day artistic bullshit that goes through our mind. It's bullshit, really. I know someone told me the other day, you shouldn't really down talk about inspiration. I'm like, that's not inspiration. That's bullshit. Inspiration doesn't happen through this constant thinking. Inspiration happens through this identification. That's where inspiration happens. Inspiration happens when you disidentify yourself from something and then you put work on top of it. And then that's where you, boom, baby, you get inspired. When you disidentify from something, that's where inspiration happens. Most of us don't experience inspiration constantly. We don't experience it because we get attached to something. We identify with stuff, you know. We're like, oh man, my painting should look like this. If it should look like something, you already dropped all inspiration that could possibly happen. It's like going into a relationship and you're like, oh my God, I want someone to love. I want someone to love and someone to love me, but it has to look like this. But that's stupid. It's so wrong. It's stupid. That's how wrong it is. And people confuse that with having integrity and having a high bar. Right, having high expectations and high bar. But it's not expectations what I'm talking about here. What's up, beautiful people? It is not expectations what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is when you disidentify yourself from something, you allow it to be. You don't suffocate it. You don't suffocate it. You know, you're not holding on to it. You're not suffocating it. And that's like that's the most beautiful thing you can do to anything. That's why they say, you know, in movies and wise people say, if you love, you let go, right? It doesn't mean that you let go as in you don't take care of it, or you don't care for it. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean that you become indifferent to it. That's not what it means. What it means is that you stop wanting it. And so it's a very strange thing, because you're like, man, I want that. What do you mean I have to stop wanting it? You have to stop clinging to it, clinging to the expectation of what it should look like. You know, what it should look like. When you drop the expectation of what it should look like, you set it free, therefore you set yourself free. It's a very, very fucking tricky thing to do, because we become identified with those things that we like a little child and a toy. You give a toy to a child, and then try taking it away. See how easy that goes. It's not because the toy is nice, or it's because it costs a lot, or no, it has nothing to do with that. You could give a child a paper napkin and then try taking it away. See what happens. You know, give a toddler a paper napkin and then try taking it away. The child becomes identified with it. This is what happens to human beings. We identify with the shit we're holding, either physically or in our minds, and then that creates a shitload of suffering. It's like, and then we can't move forward. You know, it's not the relationship that people are like, oh my God, my relationship, blah, 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 blah. No, it's that you feel that without it, you don't know who you are. Which is baloney. Like the nasty's baloney. But it's not your fault. Please, like, get this. It's not your fault. Okay? It is not your fault. It is your job to get out of it, but it is not a fault. It's not about blame here. This is normal, natural, human fucking behavior. This is normal. This is natural. This is not your fault or my fault or no. Identification with things is how we sabotage ourselves. We identify with something, and if it doesn't happen the way we want it, or it doesn't look the way we want it, then we stop trying. This is why, I don't know, many things, right, in life, but one that comes to mind is a person that can easily, a beautiful girl, let's call it that, okay, easily have thousands of men, on their knees at her feet. Cannot see the opportunity because maybe that person is clinged, right? Has identified with some idiot. Some idiot who now is taking advantage of this person. Oh, my examples are cool. Now it's taking advantage of this person because this girl has identified herself in this relationship. It's not that, that person's stupid and blah blah blah. You're not taking care of yourself. That's not what it is. Is it people don't get this kind of jam, and so we become very judgmental. It's not that. It's that the person. We all identify with things, but some people identify in differently, right? Where someone may not identify at all in what they're going to have for dinner. Someone might identify completely in who they're dating. Someone might identify completely in what they're painting. Guilty. Like, I don't give a shit what my car looks like. I identify with what I paint. Because it's who I am, right? I'm an artist. I identify with my artwork. There's a connection, identification with me and my artwork. Who am I without my artwork? Who am I without my painting style and techniques? And who am I then? If I spent all this time developing them, and I feel like I lose them, or I feel like I gain them and I don't want to lose them, who am I then? And this is, of course, a trap of the mental, the egoic sense of self, right? It's a trap. It's not yours. It's not real, but it does hurt you, unfortunately. It's not yours. It's not real, but it is our job to kick its ass. You know. One of my favorite books is the Gospel of Thomas. I'm not Christian, guys. I'm not religious, but I do like reading certain books that I find very deep and wholly spiritual. The Gospel of Thomas is a very, 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 very deep book. Highly recommended. It's one of the apocryphal books. You can find it separately. You can buy it separately. And this is I think one of the books that were found in a cave in some jars in the 40s somewhere. Not the Dead Sea Scrolls. These are different. These are some other ones from what I understand. Anyways. This Gospel of Thomas, there's a quote there that Jesus says that it is, right. He's referring to being free, in my understanding, being free from self, from the ego. It is like someone went into your home, right? A robber, a dangerous person, went into your home, and he said you have to take a sword and get him, right? You have to take a sword. In other words, it's your job to kill it. In other words, right? It's up to you. Like, it's not your fault that the person, is there. Whatever. Hey, what I believe the book there is referring to is the ego. It's like you've now become hijacked in your own home, which is your space, your mental, right? You've now become hijacked by some stupid identification that seems so strong and powerful. That's why Jesus referred to it as the strong one, the strong, right? Something that overpowers. It looks like overpowers you. And now you have to kick his ass. It's your job now, right? And I see this very clearly in artwork. I see it very clearly in daily challenges of being an artist. I see it very clearly. You can easily become identified with something and it overpowers you. Oh, the painting's not coming out. Someone referred to it as a demon the other day. Someone told me, how do I get rid of this demon? I love that. Especially because I'm not religious, so I find it really cool when people use words like that. Of course, it's a mental block, right? It's your own ego clinging onto what it should look like that, like a person, right? Like a dude trying to date this girl, and the girl doesn't want anything to do with him, and the dude's like, but why? Because it's an identification. There's over 7 fucking billion people in the world, but we cling to one. We're crazy like that. And this is the result, of course, of the egoic mind, right? It's part of being alive. It's part of being alive. We become identified with things, mental and physical things. We become identified with them. They're an extension of ourselves. They're an extension of ourselves. If you do the same things over and over, they become an extension of you, whether you want to or not. That's why it's so important. I hear this practice from high performance people. Yes, I like using that word because it sounds kick-ass. High performance people are people that are very successful somewhere in their life, usually in different places in their life. When they're high performance, they do the whole thing, right? They like exercise. They have a kick-ass business. They're a member in their community. And anyways, I happen to know one of those people, and this person said, "Look, you gotta remain nimble. You gotta be switching it. You gotta be switching it because it's always crumbling." It was a fucking insight for me. It was like, it was probably the deepest insight about life. You gotta keep switching it because it's always crumbling. It's always crumbling. Meaning life is always changing. What you have today may not have tomorrow. What works today may not work tomorrow. What worked yesterday may not work today. It's always changing. This is why Madonna was never just Madonna, right? Constantly reinvent herself. Because she understood this principle. It's always changing. Might as well change with it. Our very own nature, our greatest strength, I would say, as human beings, is adaptability. Is our ability to adapt. When it's cold, we find something to wear. When it's hot, we jump in the pool. Our ability to adapt, it is the strongest thing. It is I think it's our fucking superpower. But we usually don't use it on a daily basis. We use it as a species. It's transformative as a species, right? We used to crawl, and then we started walking, and then we run, and we develop language, and on and on and on and on. We adapt, right? We adapt to climate. We adapt. When we have a loss in our life, we go through grief, we feel bad, and then we adapt. We adapt to the change. Well, okay, now change. And people that don't adapt to change suffer a lot. Right? We know that. We already know that. Someone passes in their life, they pick up a vice, drinking or something, and then they can't let it go because they're not willing to adapt. It's difficult to adapt, right? And then they have to go through all of that, and hopefully when they get out of it, and then finally reconcile that the person passed away and that the person's no longer there anymore, but your life continues, and you have to adapt, right? And this is a micro, really, of the macro. It's a micro of the macro, right? The constellations of the world, of the universes, adapt to change. Where it's hot, it expands. Where it's cold, it contracts. It is an adaptability. It's adapting, right? It adapts. The whole game is adapting, but we don't do it consistently. We do it in a big way, but we don't do it day to day. Okay, we do it collectively, is what I'm trying to say, but we don't do it individually so well. And I believe the reason why we don't do it individually so well is because we tend to think a lot. Human beings are, we have this gift about thinking, this thing that we do, we think. And we think, right? We think a lot. So it prevents us from adapting. When you think a lot, you identify. So then, therefore, it's very difficult to adapt. When in reality, adapting is the power. There's actually people that have written about this. Many people have written about this. All the great sages. Recently, not that long ago, there's this author that I really love his work. Edgar Tolle. I think he's German. That moved to Britain and Spain. Something like that. Super cool guy. Very deep. Like deep. He wrote a book. Many of you might know it. I don't know. Some of you might know it. The Power of Now on New Earth. And he talks about this, but I think he talks about it from a very spiritual point, which is accepting the now. When you accept the now, you're constantly adapting. It doesn't mean that you don't want something else, but you're constantly adapting. That's how I look at it. An acceptance of what is an adaptation by nature, because there's nothing else. Like, it is what it is. Like, fuck it. It's cold outside. Oh my God, it's cold. Okay, well, let's put on a jacket. Let's adapt, right? But in a spiritual sense is, yeah, but it is. Like, what's the point I'm being upset about it? Because it already is. What is the fucking point I'm complaining about it if it already is? So I believe that it's pointing to a deeper. His books are definitely. I mean, his books are like deep. They go deep. But I'm talking about a more superficial, because I'm not Edgar Tolle. I'm not like that. But I'm talking about more superficial, from an observation, right? From my own personal observation as a human being in planet Earth, is that the power is adaptation. The power is adaptation. When it's dark, we go to sleep. Because everything seems muted, everything seems, okay, let's go to sleep. When there's light, well, we don't need flashlights to be walking around and working, right? And we don't need, it's okay, so it makes sense to be up. It's adaptation. It makes sense to be up, right? And that's really what I'm talking about here when it comes to your artwork. Your art career, your artwork, it's the same thing. You're creating something, you're making a painting away. And things don't look the way you want them to, and instead of changing, change is the ultimate power a human being has. The power to change, because with change comes adaptation. The power to change is, I believe, it's the ultimate power of the human being. It is what has brought us up to this point as a species. We needed to think, so therefore we develop a brain that now tortures us. That now tortures the shit out of us. When we're like in caves and running around trying to kill saber-toothed tigers, or saber-toothed tigers trying to kill us, jumping on mammoth elephants or whatever they were. We're like, man, this shit doesn't work. We need to start thinking, right? We need to develop some thinking power. So we developed that. We changed, right? According to science, we didn't walk erected. We don't walk straight. We walk, we walked with our hunched, right? And then we started, erecting our posture, right? And that's change. It's an adaptation. It's change. Everything. I mean, shit. Everything. Not just us. The entire cosmos is always changing, expanding, adapting, and what does all this shit have to do with your artwork? and your art career. The reason why it feels so difficult, guys, it's because we don't want to adapt. We don't want to change. That's why it feels so difficult. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. We just don't want to change because the comfort makes it feel better than the change. But once we go to the change, we discover even bigger fruits. But we don't want to. You know, we're like the little child that you give them a toy and they don't want to let it go. We don't want to. We don't want to change. And we have to make it a habit to constantly change. This is what, again, I started talking to you guys about a high performance person that I know said, look, your survival will depend on how nimble you are. How nimble, how easily adaptable. That's why Bruce Lee said, be like water. I mean, just think about these people, man. Bruce Lee said, be like water. Water takes all shape. Water doesn't complain. You know, water doesn't go, oh, you put me in a jar. No, water becomes the jar. You put water in, anywhere you put water, it becomes that. Bruce Lee was a very deep man. Very, very deep. I would even say maybe he had a very old, deep soul. Maybe he's had taking incarnations over and over. Very deep soul. Become that, right? The water. It's nimble. No matter where you put it, it becomes that. If you put it on a flat surface, it becomes the flat surface. This is a state of allowing. It is the deepest state of the human being, it's the state of the universe, the allowing state. The allowing. But we don't do that. And the funny thing is that when you do that, good shit happens to you. You know? Just really good shit happens to you. All of a sudden you start becoming more creative. You start getting paid more. You start doing, because you're allowing. This doesn't mean that you don't go after the things that you want. And yes, but you do it in a state of allowing. Meaning, I want to go get that, right? Cool. And then you knock on the door and it's like, oh man, the door is not working. Okay, well, let's try a different one. You allow it, right? Or let's try a different pitch. Or let's try something else. Or maybe we'll try this other thing, right? It doesn't mean you stop wanting to go after something, but you try something else. Maybe it might even mean that you stop going towards that and you go towards something else. Maybe it's going to look different, but you still go after something, maybe even of a similar, reward or whatever. But it's an allowing. You allow it. You become water. You allow it. You become nimble. You're like, okay, well, this shit doesn't work. Okay, cool. Let's move, right? Let's move. Let's try this. Every time I've suffered in my career, it's because I don't allow things. And that is the ultimate challenge. The ultimate challenge of an artist. I don't even think you can create artwork if you don't allow. I think it's very difficult. I think it's almost impossible to create artwork in the space of not allowing it. Because when you allow, something happens when you allow. You open the portal of creativity. You open the possibilities. You become, it's almost like the muse will not visit you unless you open the door. Right? Unless you allow, unless you open the door. and stop clinging onto what shit's supposed to look like. Shit doesn't supposed to look like anything. It's just here. It's just right here. Like, we think that shit's supposed to look like something, but it doesn't. It shouldn't. As a matter of fact, it shouldn't. If it does, you become its slave. You get enslaved by your thought process. Happy to be back. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love those hearts. I'm like Tinkerbell. I love hearts. Heart, 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 heart. So, anyways, guys, that is the way the cookie crumbles here in my studio. Check it out. Bam, baby. Studio. Studio. Art studio. Yeah. It's in the allowing, guys. If you don't allow, you're missing out. You're missing out tremendously. You're missing out tremendously. Most of us, unfortunately, do not know how to allow. Unfortunately, again, because we get tied up in the way things are supposed to be, and the way things are supposed to be are usually very limiting. They're very limited. That's the word, guys. Limited. It's very limited. Okay? If you are trying to do something a certain way, it becomes very limited. If you are, I'm a landscape painter, and you have this idea as to what a landscape painter is, you become extremely limiting. You become limited. As opposed to saying, you know what, I'm going to paint a landscape without thinking about being a landscape painter. without thinking about it. Without the mental construct about being a landscape painter, or about what a landscape should look like, or about the brushes that I'm going to use, or the composition, or just fucking letting it go, so that you can actually start creating artwork and not just trying to constantly entrap yourself. You become a slave of your own artwork. You become a slave of your own ideas. This has happened to me before, and again, guys, every time that this thing I've experienced this thing, it's because I must paint this way. It must look like this, or I was doing it and it was so easy. What happened? I promise you, it's not that. It was your mental state. It was you were creating artwork from an allowing mental state. That's why you flow. When you flow, it's not because you figured something out. It's not because you're like, oh yeah, I figured something out. No, it looks that way. It's not. It's because you're in a state of allowing. And when you're in a state of allowing, the universe starts helping you. Because that's the universe. The universe's job is to aid you. It's to aid you. It's to help you. It's to help take you there. You know, you have a dream. You have an idea. The universe's job is to take you there. It's aiding you towards that. If that makes any sense. And when you don't allow that, when you cling onto something, and you tell yourself, man, this shit's supposed to look this way. When you do that, you suck all of the elements of creativity out of it. You suck all of it out. When you're like, I need to do that painting with this brush. It has to be done with this brush. Then you suck everything out. All creativity out of it. Because now you've made a mental construct of what it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like, and it's supposed to be this thing. As opposed to leaving a little chance. Leave a little chance of not knowing. Sort of like going out on a date. First we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do this. This is the perfect date. No, you're stupid. Of course not. Like, it's cool to have a plan. Okay, we're going to do this and that, and then we'll leave a little bit to chance and see what happens. We have a basic idea of what I want this date to look like, but let's leave some to chance, to change, for change. Something different. Something that might result in things not looking the way they were meant to be. And when we do that, we grow. When we do that, we grow. You know, it's cutting the cord. It's cutting the cord of something. You know, of an idea of something. I'm going to make a landscape painting, I'm going to make a portrait painting, and I can see it now. I can see the colors, and I can see this, and I can see that, and then when you start painting, it doesn't translate as well, and then you become like, oh man, it's not what I was thinking. Of course not. Of course it's not what you were thinking. Because it's not supposed to be. Because it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be what you're thinking. It's supposed to be what it's supposed to be, not what you're thinking. And most of us don't know how to do that. We don't know how to accept that. So, anyways, guys, I invite you today to accept what is, to adapt. To have a risky day. Chance it a little bit. Break something. I don't know. Break a pattern. If you're used to doing things a certain way, change it up a little bit. You know, do it a different way. Disrupt your pattern. Disrupt what you usually do. Instead of, if you paint watercolors normally, paint watercolors, but maybe change the subject, or change the medium entirely. Disrupt the pattern. I mean, keep doing the thing that works, like I said before, but disrupt the pattern a little bit. That way you allow, every time you disrupt the pattern, you are allowing creativity to start, you ignite creativity. All right, guys, I got to get to work. I'll talk to you guys soon. Don't forget, later today at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, Arizona time, 6 p.m., I will have a live art auction. Okay, those of you who want to join and participate in the live auction, come and kick it with me. It's going to be super cool. I'm going to be doing a live painting, and I'm going to be auctioning it. The auction is going to start at $100. $100, yeah, $100, which is really peanuts for an original oil painting, but that's where the auction starts, and it's available. People can actually bid on it on Instagram. Another thing that I'm doing here on Instagram is that whenever I create a live auction, that auction doesn't go somewhere else. It stays on Instagram. So no one else is going to be bidding on it on eBay, or I'm not going to put it on Etsy or Facebook, or no, it's going to be on Instagram. It's only for the people that want to participate on Instagram. And the reason I did it, it's because, I mean, people are pretty freaking cool here. So I told myself, why not? People are extremely generous with me here on Instagram. And I just wanted to do something cool for you guys, you know. I wanted to do something cool, something slightly different, right? Something cool here. Have an art auction where I paint it live, and I get to auction it at the end, and it's just for the peeps on Instagram. And we'll see. We'll play it by ear. We'll keep it open, right? We'll keep it open. We'll see. It might change. It might not. But remain open, right, for change. So there you guys have it. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.